This one I showed before, but I'm going to show it again because it's adorbs. This is going to be for Pride Month. And I made a little, added onto the bracelet and made it better. But also, you know, when you're saying like, be aware, like this for me, like, this is why I talk about this stuff. And sometimes people are like, oh, the cult members aren't going to understand you. I'm like, I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for you. Either for you to go get them or for you to just, wait, you said I'm paused because I'm not using the app. Oh, I have to get used to Instagram. You know, I say this at the end of the book, like, what's the point of this? Was like, I decided I didn't want to use my organizational group behavior understanding to help groups. Because I decided I don't really care about the groups. I don't know if they can be better under white supremacy and patriarchy and capitalism. I don't know if they want to be better. I know that I wasn't selling my services because that's like asking the CEO to do therapy in public. Like, let me come in and tell you everything wrong about your group. But like, that is my basic skill set. That was my job in the Army. That is my job now. I'm just still talking about the threat, talking about the bad stuff. But the point is not for the group. The point is for you. You know, maybe you see that video of me just wearing a sash talking about how culture was trying to control your underwear. And you realize that one time that your male boss insisted on all the women wearing pantyhose, even with slacks and shoes when you couldn't tell, that was valid for you to feel weird about that. Right. So I call myself, well, Mr. Knitting Cult Lady called me the disorganizational psychologist, because I'm like, I'm going to use my expertise to help you understand groups that have hurt you in the past, groups that are hurting you now, and to avoid groups that might hurt you in the future. Right. Because we don't diagnose something as a cult in our society until it is on the news and we measure the damage in bodies. I have to go get a charger. Fight with Knitting Cult Baby for the charger, and it's never where I left it. Okay, so now I'm paused due to a poor connection. Hey, yeah, so the sociological lens, and it's just like, you know, first of all, people ask me why some of my conclusions are so different from other cult scholars. And I'm like, well, I have a perspective they don't have, right? Which is like, this is the same reason that I get more out of books written by women than books written by men. Because like, as women, we have the perspective of the men, right? That's been shoved down our throats all of our lives, but they don't have our perspective. And so like, I have the perspective of all of the cult experts that went before me. But they don't have the cult baby perspective, and they don't have the military perspective, right? And so going back to that, measure the damage in body things, right? Like, we're always going to argue about what makes a cult, and I honestly don't think the name matters at all. I just happen to be from one that everyone agrees, yep, that's a cult. And so I decided, like, I don't care to spend time defining a cult. I made my definition. I wrote a whole book about it, but I'm also wrote a whole book that shows you that it doesn't matter. And in my musical, we're going to be like, call it what you want to, right? Because like, it doesn't matter. If we don't call something a cult until it's in the news and we can measure the damage in bodies, well, then my military officer, intelligence officer can tell you that we go left of the boom. We call it in the military, right? So like, let me go here upstream and start telling people the danger signs of groups before they get to the Kool-Aid station, right? Like, that's the point of it. The point is not to destroy your groups, right? Like, I'm not going to take down AA or the American military, but like, those are both cults and we should talk about them. You're saying I trust this top too much? No, this is good. I just can't zip it all the way up anymore. But this I made out of the top of a little romper that was, too small on me. And then I chopped it off, and I chopped it in half back here and expanded it. And I did this, and now I have the shorts, and I'm doing like crochet bell bottoms. Except I got kind of bored of that, so now I'm not doing that. Catholic Church subsection that was very culty. See, and again, like with these big cults, it's like experiences vary. That's also true in the Children of God. Right? Like experiences vary. But also this other thing I've been talking about recently is like, if you were in one of these groups and you didn't think it was a cult, maybe that's because you weren't the demographic that was mostly being harmed by it. Men, right? Like, I made this video about that. Somebody was like, yeah, it's true. When you think of someone who's fled a cult, you're thinking about a woman. Right? Like, it's true in patriarchy too. Like, the men aren't as abused by it. This is true in the military. Like I say that in part, I wrote my book so that the good men, like Mr. Knitting Cult Lady, could understand that him being a 6'2" white pilot gave him a pretty good career in the military versus what I had. And when I'm trying to explain this to some military dudes, I can just be like, hey, you're short, right? And they immediately get it. They immediately know that my 6'2" husband had an easier time in the military because he's the size things are made for. Right. So, yeah, I don't think grooming techniques are used exclusively in cults, but it's just coercive control, like tactics. But once you understand that all a cult takes is 2 people, yeah, they're probably all cults. So 5'6", half Mexican in an infantry battalion is not a fun time. Exactly. And now imagine you were a woman too, right? So it's just like every demographic. And this is like systems are traumatizing when they're not made for you, right? Or being in a system that's not made for you is traumatizing. Being a woman in the military is traumatizing. Being an African American in America is traumatizing. And these are actual concepts, like whether the individual realizes it or not. They experienced that trauma. That's the same thing for cults, military going through training intended to break your identity, literally called identity breaking indoctrination. When we do it in cults, like that is traumatic on its own. I thought that going into theater, like getting deployed to Afghanistan, when I got there, like I thought that was my trigger of like, oh, my whole childhood. But my editor notices in basic training, like I'm having flashbacks to cult land, right? So just being in that prophecy abuse, that's a great term. I always tell people, if you were in any version of have sex for Jesus, like that was abuse. Whether that's you're never allowed to say no to your husband, whether that's children of God, you're supposed to share your body with everyone. Like it doesn't have to have been forced to have been forced. I thought you were calling this therapy, but like I was like, speaking of therapy, like again, this goes back to like why I do this. It's like something we've noticed. So something that cult experts have said is it's probably impossible to heal from cult trauma without understanding what happened to you. Right? Until I heard cults are about labor and I understood what had happened to me, like why my childhood existed, I wasn't like able to heal from that. Right. And so, but we have a problem that the mental health field is not well trained for that. Also don't have sex for Jesus is another. And like, if you haven't realized this yet, I'm about to break your brain, but purity culture, pedophilia culture, same thing. 2 sides of the same coin. I spent a really long time wondering why I had so much in common with ex-Mormons, even though Schmeck's cult, purity cult, right? It's the same thing. It's all the obsession with the schmexuality of children. And purity culture breeds pedos. Like it doesn't just attract them, it breeds them. So yeah, having to get in front of the church and declare your virginity to Jesus. I mean, all of that stuff, pledging your virginity to your father. Like at this point, this is like institutionalized psychological incest. I mean, there is so much in there, right? That is just bonkers. And I actually think Pete Davidson's latest stand-up special has a phenomenal example of how purity culture and pedophilia are tied together. So he's talking about how he's 10 years old and he's from a very Catholic family, right? He's 10 years old and he thinks he has a crush on Leonardo DiCaprio because Titanic, and he was beautiful, right? And he was magnetic. And so he's telling his mom, as he's 10 years old, he's like, Mom, I think I might be gay. And she just starts going to town on him with, do you like blah, 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 and you're blah, 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 and do you think this is cool, and do you want it? Like the most explicit things that are never appropriate to say to a 10-year-old. Boom, right? Mormon children having to have like invasive interviews with creepy old men about like touching themselves. It's just like, ew. Mormons like fondling each other's backs to make sure they are wearing their sacred underwear. Gross. And this is called performative regulation, by the way. When the members of the cult all police each other and put each other under constant surveillance, and constant surveillance is one of the ways that you break people. Are these all connected? Oh, yes, they are. Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So my book about cults is done. Y'all, my brain is so tired. I was already supposed to be like 2 weeks into the musical, and like all I did was get it down on paper, and I'm just so tired. So I'm like doing my social media stuff and then just listening to Philippa Gregory books and crafting for like hours and hours every day. Okay, so I wrapped these in chenille. It looks like velvet, maroon, and purple. We're going to hang some tassels on them. They're going to be very schmexually suggestive earrings, I think. Thank you. Yeah, so, and again, going back to my thing, it's like some people were like, oh, she can't be taken seriously and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. I opted out of academia on purpose. On the first day of graduate school, they told us about the scientist practitioner gap, right? Leadership research is going on all the time, but what happens at your companies is what Simon Sinek and Brene Brown says, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to go sit in that gap. I'm going to go make my world in that gap. And it's also part of what I call like the value of having the extreme story, right? Like we didn't all grow up in something that's ever going to be labeled a cult, but I did. And nobody can knock that. And so I don't have to prove your thing as a cult. I just sit here and describe cults and their tactics in such minute detail that you are able to identify yourself. Right? Like I didn't spend a lot of time studying Nation of Islam or Nubian Nation or Black Hebrew Israelites. I just spent a lot of time talking on the internet about cults and how they control people. And then I let the Black, usually women survivors of that, identify their own story to me. I did study AA a lot, but both ways with that. Like I already knew it was a cult because children of steppers have cult stories. And I just like had to get all the pieces. Took me like a year to learn about the labor pieces, but there it is. Yeah, and then it's like, if that's helpful, great. If it's not helpful, nobody went out and got you and told you that you have to be here. Or read my books. And it's just like, that's, you know, my book, right? It is a pop psychology book, right? Like it's not pretending to be an unbiased assessment of anything. It is me going, I read all the stuff, right? Here's their perspective, 36 pages of bibliography. This is what everyone has said about cults and groups. And here are my 2 additional unique additions. Cult baby, only one with military experience, right? And so I am building on their theories, and in some cases asking for revisions on their theories. And I'm going to put that out into the world, knowing that most cult experts can't get on board with the military thing. And then they can respond. And I've said many times, like, if there's anyone else out there that has spent their lifetime studying cults and has been in the military at a like tactical enough level to discuss it and understand it, like, I'm happy to have that discussion. This is my 3 favorite reviews of my book have been men who were born and raised in legitimate cults like Scientology, Sea Org, spent 20 years in the military, were outraged when they heard that I was daring to compare their military to their cult experience, and then read the book, and all of them were like, "Ma'am, you made your case." One of them got on He Who Shall Not Be Named's podcast with me also to talk about it. And again, had to suggest, every time he suggested that the Army was maybe less of a bad cult than the cult, Scientology in his case. And I was like, but you're also a white man. So maybe the Army was less of a cult to you. To this day, won't acknowledge started a cult. Are you talking about Teal Swan? It sounds like you're talking about Teal Swan. And then the fun part is like everyone gets mad when I come for their group, right? And then they'll just be like, "You're a cult," and I'm like, I'm purposefully not leading any groups. I won't even start a Discord group or a WhatsApp group for my book club. I'm just like, nope. I am literally here to create content, create discussions, help you understand your stuff better. I have another book written. Like it's been like 2 weeks that it's done. Like it's in manuscript form now. It's out with the next version of people who need to read it and say stuff. And it's going to come out January 20th. The 1-year anniversary of all us all living in this particular cult. And I'm going to have like a 5-year researched book come out on the 1-year anniversary of the Trump. I will be having some kind of big launch party, probably in College Park, Maryland, near Washington, D.C. There will be many jokes about crowd size. As one does. Okay, I need to get my pliers. Somewhere around here. I must have pliers. Or the knitting cult babies stole some. Somebody bought a pair of knitting cult babies earrings. She's very excited. She's not very excited that I told her I take a $2 listing and advertising fee. But there you have it. There's ways to teach your children about entrepreneurship that isn't exploiting their labor, Girl Scouts. Yes, it is. Nothing pliers. Not find my good pliers, so these ones are going to have to do the job. I should probably get another set of those good pliers at some point. Easy to formulate identifying cult-like groups instead of non-cult-like ones. And I just think it's different topics right? And I think that like the opposite of cult is not good cult. That's why I'm like, when you're joking about being a cult, or when you're like have a defense to being a cult, like why were people asking you if you were a cult? Right? Because when we have a positive group experience, we don't go saying like, oh, it feels like a cult. No, because cults are exploitative. Like, and you feel that. But like, I know I was frustrated and getting snarky at the end of the book because I was like, I literally just did a 5-year research project on bad groups. And then people just want, now here's a nice chapter on good groups at the end to make them feel good. I'm like, at the very least, that is a whole other research project and a whole other focus is good groups. Like I always said, if you're going to pay me a bunch of money to come into your company and diagnose the toxic stuff, first thing I'm going to do is go out and find someone who specializes in good groups so that they can give you a bunch of suggestions on what to do. Any group can become a cult if someone manipulative steps in. Yes, I agree with that way of saying it. What I don't agree with is the stereotype that cults start off good and then just accidentally happen. Like, no, people don't just trip and fall into coercive control. Or there people are like, how do you build a group that isn't a cult? I'm like, don't coerce and manipulate people and take their labor. Apparently, like, it's not necessarily true that Kendrick Lamar is in like the Black Hebrew Israelites cult. He's definitely had interactions with them and had like a cousin that was in, but I mean, people said all kinds of things on that thread, so I don't know what to believe anymore. As my critic, you also have to be more apologetic. Yeah, I mean, and this is exactly why people are like, when I talk about AA, for example, they're like, so what's your answer on addiction? And I literally say this at the end of the book, like, that's why we're not answering addiction, because we're asking the wrong person. Like, I'm not an addiction specialist. I am a toxic group specialist, right? You do want me there at the first part of the conversation. You probably want me there at the second part of the conversation, but I'm not the main person talking. Like, that's when addiction specialists come in. But if you're acting like we can't even have the conversation, and like, look, I don't like pimp the military a lot, but one thing that they do get right is the intelligence officer has no politicalness in the unit. And even though, and the military structure, and even though the operations officer's job outranks us, they put us at an equal job level. And you're as the intelligence officer, you're not supposed to care at all if those people want to go fly or want to go do that mission that day. Like, my job is to tell you how you might unalive today and then be like, deal with it. And so at least in aviation, then we have another person who was called tactical operations who worked very closely with us, because we would be like, here's all the things that could go wrong. And then you go talk to this other person whose specialty is like, and here's what you might do about that, right? Completely different specialties. And like my husband still, because we met in the military, he was one of the pilots, I was the intelligence officer, and he still was like, yeah, she would just get all the fun missions canceled by like the words I would choose to express the threat. And that is true. I did not want one more American dying in the Tagab Valley, and it was going to take a lot from me to tone down the danger. Oh, also, this one time, I was the drone manager for the brigade. Okay. And I say that because I always say nobody that knows anything about drones can tell you about drones. And then the bros come on and try to pretend like I don't know what I'm talking about. So this one time, I wrote a book on drones. A top secret book on drones. And I can promise you that what Americans think about drones is sci-fi. What's JAG? See, I know I can say those two things. At first I didn't, but then I remembered that in my unclassified evaluation, does it say that I was the Brigade Intelligence, Surveillance, and Reconnaissance Manager? And does it also talk about the book that I wrote on those things? So I can talk about that. Community is a spectrum. I also think that community doesn't rely on isolation, but cults do. And I think maybe all groups do to a certain form. Like, I think maybe part of our problem, at least in a patriarchal world, is as soon as we define an us, we also define a them, right? As soon as you have members, you have non-members. And you hear the way AA talks about normies and dry drunks and all their ways of saying, like, you're not one of us. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, they look okay. And this is really the crux of it. How do you build a good organization? Like, value each other's labor. Value your people's labor. Like, the amount of free music labor I have been offered since saying I'm going to write a musical, like batting away the Mormon boys that all play guitar, right? Like, I just don't take free labor. I will never have to worry about an organization that I build becoming a cult if I'm not exploiting people's labor. When you want to say thank you to your employees, give them money. There were no words to tell my team how much I valued their help getting me through this book. So I just sent them all money. And now they get it. That's my entire organizational psychology degree. Give them money. If you need to motivate people to be in your organization, that means your organization is not giving them what they need. The end. I do not need to be motivated to go to cult happy hour. Is that this Thursday? That might be this Thursday. That might be today. It's definitely today. Oh. We moved it. But anyway, I do a monthly happy hour in College Park, Maryland. I'm going to do a Philly event in DC on the 12th of June. I think I'm going to now do my July New York City event actually right at the end of June, because I think we're deciding to take advantage of it being Pride Month. And then in August, we'll have something in Seattle. I got, like, for my petty, I got the most highlighter orange, because I think it'll match well with my neon pool outfits. So that's my plan. Extracting free labor. Yeah. That is probably kind of a single family cult. Your parents are always extracting free labor from you. And, like, honestly, like, the best thing you can do to protect yourself from coercive people is learn to value your own time and labor. Hey, have a great week also. All right, so I do this College Park, Maryland happy hour. If you want to be on our invite list, you can email admin@uncultureyourself.com. And those will, yeah, the parentified child thing is hard. POV, when you realize that Gilmore Girls is just about an insane amount of parentification. The 9-year-old, okay? So everything is POV. Have a great week. And I was a big fan of Gilmore Girls because I was like, I had a 15-year-old mom who I wasn't raised by and who had 7 other children, but this is like what my life could have been if I hadn't been in a cult. Anyway. So I think, do we just put them directly? No, I think I gotta put them on posts. Which also means I need beads. Yeah, like being the oldest, being big sister, you know, I mean, like being the oldest child in a lot of American families is similar to just being like the scapegoated person in a cult. And finally, at some point, you might just be like, yeah, I'm just not gonna keep coming back to this anymore. Oh my God. So with video games being a lifesaver for ADHD folks, right? So I started knitting obsessively in college because I was told, I took a learning test and I was told body kinesics, the rarest form of learning, you're coding through movement. This was the ADHD diagnosis I should have gotten. But anyway, so I would knit, but I was too embarrassed to do it in front of the teachers because I thought like they would take that as a sign of disrespect. And I do think back then many of them would have. But so I'd only knit in my biggest seminar classes, but like not in the small literature courses. And so, you know, initially, probably my first 2 years, I just obsessively took notes, right? I just write down every single thing the teacher says. But then in my junior and senior, I just started like playing solitaire, playing Minesweeper, like obsessively playing video games behind my screen to just get through. And it was funny because I'm like, either the teachers don't notice and would never dream that their number one student is doing this, or they do notice, but because I'm the number one student, they don't care. And I think now we realize so much more about this stuff. How it's well known. And there's an author, I think it was Amanda Montell, who wrote Cultish, but she did a thing in her last book on. She was like, oh, there was somebody in the front row knitting, and it made me so happy because I know that they're paying special attention. Yes. I can't look at you when you talk to me. And also, if I'm knitting, I'm paying attention. Fast forward to I'm 27 years old, senior intelligence officer in the battalion, sitting in my chair, just knitting a Seahawks blanket for Mr. Knitting Coat Lady, the future Mr. Knitting Coat Lady. Yeah, but books and knitting don't lower executive function. I mean, potentially they do. Dissociating through books is not that much different than dissociating in other ways. We just love the written word. Oh, tenet of white supremacy, the worship of the written word. Like I saw a meme that was like the pipeline from ADHD girly, undiagnosed ADHD girly who used to read for hours, who now scrolls, just doom scrolls on the internet, just found an easier way to dissociate. So I think there are a lot of societally accepted addictions that trauma survivors and neurodivergent people hide in. Not on purpose, but because that's literally what society accepts. Like, obsessive running, cool. Heroin, less cool. Okay, let me do obsessive running. And also, yeah, dissociation is important, right? If we're dissociating all of the time because we don't know how to live in our bodies and with our emotions, something we could heal. But also, like, especially right now, like when I told y'all I do this, I'm gonna record. I'm gonna start recording chapters of the book to put on Patreon. And then like I'm gonna take the kids grocery shopping, and then I'm just gonna F around and listen to audiobooks and craft and not think about the craziness in the world. That's with another thing, right? Prince Harry's book. People very, very upset with the imagery. Like, he does not actually compare flying an Apache to a video game. He does not do that. He takes you in a scene from playing video games to going to fly that helicopter, where this is now the gun, right? To going back to the video game, right? And like, that's how you survive a year at war. You dissociate. There's a tremendous amount of fuckery that goes on to survive war that doesn't get talked about. And this is part of why I think deployments are so much worse for women, because we don't get to dissociate, because he got to come back behind the walls and take off his armor and put down his weapon and go back to his video game. And we never got to stop being on the lookout for which of our buddies was going to grape us. And then they have the nerve to say that women can't have PTSD if they never went outside the wire. I do think it's probably easier for people who are born into a cult to leave it, because like I was never going to stay in the Children of God. I was always just growing up to survive, to get out. But once you've bought into it, like at some point you thought it was great. Like, OMG, resigning my commission. I only did it in 2021. And like, it's a lifetime commission. Like, I earned a lifetime commission from President Barack Obama to be in the United States military. And I gave it up because I was, I write critical books about the military right now. It's a smart choice. And it was hard. And like every time, because I was in the inactive reserves, right? That's like the World War III call list, right? But then once a year, you have to show up and remind them that you're alive and sign some papers. And like, I was already well into writing a very critical book about the Army. And still, every time I see a woman walking in a soldier uniform, I'm like, but I miss it. But do I want to go back? What is a commission? It is a fancy piece of paper saying that you are an officer in the military. And this is one of the caste systems that we still have in America. And it used to be like in, Civil War times, like if you were rich and your parents would buy you a commission, your father would buy you a commission. and then send you off to lead. And usually because you also brought horses and weapons and everything with you. It's still kind of the same thing. If you or your parents can get you a college degree, you can be an officer in the United States military. But for me, it was like I came from a freaking schmeck's cult with no education. And I made myself a captain in the goddamn United States Army. Like, I was pretty proud of that. I also think I thought, there was some point at which I would outrun my trauma, or like I would have enough success that I could forget my trauma. And it doesn't work that way. And going from that to being an officer in the US Army and like that not fixing it, then you're like, uh-oh. Now what do I do? Break down, write a book. Build your whole life all different. Simple stuff. What are the downsides? Don't ask, don't tell. Harassed, but couldn't do anything. Oh yeah, absolutely. There's only negatives to don't ask, don't tell. But yeah, I was very proud that Uncultured came out on September 20th because that was the anniversary of Don't Ask, Don't Tell being repealed. And literally, the news came out in May. I was deployed. And it came out in May that it was going to be repealed on September 20th. And like part of our job as officers was to just be like, don't tell me yet. Just don't tell us yet. It's so funny. These dudes will be like, I can't shower with an openly gay dude. Like, we've been showering with openly gay women for our whole military careers. I love pushing back on men why they're afraid of gay dudes. Is it? Or why they talk about like going to prison as what scares them? Like, oh, is it almost like because you're afraid that anyone bigger than you could just do whatever they wanted to you? Yeah? I wonder what that's like. Oh, poor baby. Interesting book written by a soldier who I briefly served with. Army Values and Frat House Rules. Ooh. You in touch with that soldier? Because I would love a review copy of that book and to have them on my podcast. I'll go buy it anyway. But if you want to help them sell some books, I can probably help them with that. You can get a hold of me at admin@uncultureyourself.com. admin@uncultureyourself.com. Briefly met her as they were destroying her reputation. Yeah. Shockingly, there's a section of that in my book, too. It was not shocking to anybody. There it went. That's odd. Yeah, and it is. Like we just talked about, like Army just freezes development in men at whatever point they join the military. Like it's gross. And then especially in the officer world, because you have most of us are freaking 22 years old, right? Like just out of college, this is our first job. And so like, of course, we're going to hang out. We're going to be single. We're all going to get with each other. We're going to just be hot messes. But then you also have a group of people who are all non-commissioned officers, sergeants, etc., in their branches who are coming over to be officers. And so then you have this like 37-year-old dude with 5 kids who just fucked my family, and they were just all hanging out with, and I'm like, I'm sorry, that's weird. Like, Mr. Knitting Cult Lady just spent 4 years getting a bachelor's degree, and like he didn't go to frat parties, and like he didn't go hang out with the kids during hours that were not study. Like, it's weird. Some of them did come to his graduation, and they were such kids. Like these ones go with my outfit right now. I'm gonna have to put them on. These ones I call my "you're free to leave anytime" earrings. The handcuffs literally say freedom. It's funny because with these ones, people will be like, they make me think of fuzzy handcuffs. I'm like, yeah, it's on purpose. Yeah, and I mentioned sororities, like every chapter of the book, I lead in with like a vignette of something that's kind of culty. And my Us versus Them chapter is fraternities and sororities. Oh, these are going to sell so fast. If you want these, you can purchase any pair of earrings in my shop and just tell me you want these. I think that only works on YouTube. I don't know how to get my new products on Insta. But also in my Blink, there's an Etsy. Same. Have I always been a craft person? So like, yes, but very, very poor. So like my mom taught me to knit when I was 5. And throughout, from till I was 15, it was like every time we had supplies, it was knitting, crocheting, cross stitching, really those 3. She was always knitting, but she was also always pregnant or having a baby. So they would like justify buying her yarn. But for us, it was just like a bunch of stuff would be donated and then we would do it. Right. I always definitely needed something to do. But then when I was 18, I kind of picked it up again. And then I've just been going since then. And now definitely like once creating became a part of my show as well as just something I do, is now I just create a lot. And so what I'm doing this, like right now we're making earrings. Who knows? 5 years ago we were selling paintings, So it's kind of like I just do the ADHD obsession and then sell a bit of it and then move on. Once upon a time I was making crochet F-bombs for people and then that got boring. So, and this is what I say to people. It's like, can you make a living from crafts and fiber arts? Like, yes, if you're an extremely prolific creator and you can build a huge audience. Yes. I'm selling like 20 pairs of earrings a week right now. Yes, Daniela Mistanek Young. That's me. But yeah, generally, no, it's hard. People don't like to pay for time anymore. But that's why like the earrings and the scrunchies, my hair control scrunchies are such a good thing because people like want to support and they want crafts. I will tell you that there's about the crafting, like there's someone in my family who their children will not, their male children will not have girly hobbies, right? Extreme sports, blah, blah, blah. The kid hand makes lacrosse nets. And sells them. And I was like, you're still crafting. I mean, so my rainbow dress, I don't know if you've seen it, but go watch the videos. I mean, I crocheted a dress out of embroidery thread. It has like every color of the rainbow. It is beaded. It is the reason I don't pay for drinks on flights, because by the time they're coming to my seat, we've had discussions about the book I wrote and the clothes I make and the fact that I'm standing there knitting. And it's not even like people, like somebody was like, okay, so this thing took me 2.5 years. It was literally my entire master's degree. Wasn't the only thing I'm working on. And now I'm even faster. So it would probably take me 6 months. Right. And somebody was like, how much? Like, I know it will be expensive. And I'm like, I don't, like $5,000. Like it's not just the time and the materials. It's also like giving up my entire summer of making anything else. I mean, it's like really, really big. Gosh, I don't want to run for office so much, but I am taking that Harvard class on civics education and learning to spot the signs of a dictatorship. And I think that maybe I should, we don't live really, we live in a blue, majorly non-white District of Maryland. So both my husband and I kind of feel like, well, we'd be running against, like someone who deserves that position more, who can make more change. I don't know. But we're definitely trying to find out, like, we are both shiny veterans. Like, how can we use our names, or how can we, like, I know there are committees of people that go around and like search for candidates for the Democrats. And anyway, we'll see. I don't want to really like clean myself up, professionalize myself up, but I would probably wear like this jacket and these earrings with a non-cleavage shirt to like the Senate. Yeah, what you said, Finian, and then I'm going to end on that, is like, this is why cults pop up in times of social turmoil, because we all are terrified and it's hard to admit. And like, I think that's actually the hardest thing people have with my content. It's like, why are you not scared? Why are you not whatever? I am. I'm angry. I'm also scared. I'm not panicking because, one, I've survived all of this stuff before, but like, we don't even know what to expect, right? Like, we're on a speeding bullet train waiting for that crash right now. And then we're going to have to figure out who survived. And then we're going to have to like pick up our weapons and get back to work. This is the work of democracy. It's always, always going to be fighting for it against the fundamentalists who are trying to pull us backwards. Always. So, not that much has changed. Especially if you listen to Black women. They're just like, this is what America has always been. It's just more honest right now. And I am starting to get to the point where I'm like, maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Because like, we need to pull these systems apart. Like, we need to see all these weak spots and corruption in our government. Like, we needed white people to stop buying into the idea that America was such a great country. Like, I think if MAGA, like I was saying this last time, or in the middle when I didn't think he was going to win again, but I was like, people were like, what do we do now once MAGA goes down? I was like, we need to World War II the shiz out of this, right? Like, we need to write 1 million books. We need to talk about it. We need to explore every corner of this. That wouldn't have happened if Kamala got elected. It would have just quietly gone away, and like my book would have come out being like, hey, this was crazy, right? But now, like, we gonna be writing about this for the rest of our lives, right? And like, that's what needs to happen. We need the systems to come down. And look, luckily enough, we know that we are living through historical times, because look at all the cults, right? If cults pop up in times of social turmoil, then we also know that when there's a new cult every other day, like, we are living through crazy times. Gen Z has literally had a historic once-in-a-lifetime event, like, every year of their lives, right? So if you think about it, they say what happens when you're 10, like, forms your generation, right? And so for millennials, give or take 9/11, right? Prior to 9/11, you didn't have that many flashbulb events, right? White Bronco chase. You have like white Bronco chase, where like every American is watching the television and know what happened, right? Challenger explosion, landing on the moon, Challenger explosion. I can't remember which one came first. White Bronco chase. And then you have 9/11. And then you just start having them nonstop, right? So like, that's the world they're coming up in. That's why they're all dressed in beige. That's why, like, they're mentally exhausted. Yeah. So, I mean, I do want to be in politics. Like, I just don't want to ever have to mask who I am. So that's my answer. Like, if people will vote for me who I actually am, then yeah. But I still just don't think in our collective psyche we can take a woman seriously when she's being so womanly out loud. But maybe, like, One of the things I love about Jasmine Crockett is she is just out there being herself, right? And like many Black women have gone before that have had to whitewash themselves, but now she gets to be herself. So yeah, same for AOC. And so anyway, I probably just need to stop being a coward and figure out what to do. But then the other part of me is like, okay, but if I was in government, then who would be doing this? Who would be like in the deconstruction community, like helping? You know, one of the things I've really found is that like, so every cult expert says there's a single cult experience. All cults are the same, ultimately, right? Which means, here's the cult baby perspective, right? Which means there's a single cult baby experience. And I'm trying to help with the language for that. And also, we are all in this cult together right now, right? We're going to need so much processing and healing of this, even once this experience is done. So that's the other thing I'm trying to balance, right? It's like, I understood why Michelle Obama was like, no, I'm not running for politics. Like, I'm booking out stadiums to talk to people with my book, you know? And then part of why I can speak truth to power is because I don't answer to anyone. Is because no one can figure out how to cancel me. I try hard on TikTok. Anyways, I'm going to go do work things. Oh yeah, I'm recording chapter 3. But we're sick. No, that was chapter 2. Sorry. Chapter 3. Do it for the children. About the transcendent mission. We start with Theranos. And Cultivating America comes out January 20th. Now for the next like 3 months, I'm going to be recording chapters and putting it on my Patreon. So if you would like to see, you know, all that stuff in advance, come join us over there. That's also where we run the book clubs. I'm glad I remember that I have cult happy hour today. Bye, everybody. Ooh, I don't hear from that many people who just finished an American. What did you think? I just pulled it back out and like started looking at it. Like, I've already had to commit to doing it because I have to get it on the publishing schedule, but it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. And her boyfriend now has a blood testing. So yeah, I mean, it's bonkers. It's bonkers. All right. Bye, friends. See you tomorrow.